Okay, we now welcome back onto the show, friend of the show and General Manager of the Liberal Democratic Party, Admin Limited, and Vice President of the National Executive, Kirsty O'Sullivan. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Thank you.
Now, Kirsty, we've got a lot to get into for this show, but first off, I think we need to discuss the most important thing, which is we're both Richmond fans, and flag, surely.
Surely.
Flag?
It's going to happen.
Down.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
That was one of the best victories I've seen. I was thumping my chest. I was running around the room.
I think it took 10 years off my life.
Yep.
It was amazing. But I've also been discussing this with Bernie Finn, and we've decided this is definitely going to happen. We're due for the flag again. We need it. Last year was just,
It was off.
It was off.
Yeah, there was something in the water, but we're back.
Let's just talk about this for the next 10 minutes.
I would do a Joe Rogan 4-hour deep dive. We'd be talking about Jaden Short's kicking efficiency for hours.
It's amazing.
All right, we've lost every West Coast fan, but I reckon we've still got a whole lot of people that are going to care about these issues. Liberal Democrats had a bunch of media this week off the back of DayZ's ban in Australia. So what is DayZ and why was it banned?
I wasn't sure if it was supposed to say DayZ or DayZ, but anyways.
Z's a bit American, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's like Z for zombie.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So Tim Quilty actually took this to task and he did a great job at it. I love the way that Tim, the way he's so deadpan with his humour in Parliament. He's always putting in a few little cheeky lines. But basically, this game had been on the market for 5 years already.
Okay.
And what they found, there was cannabis in the files. It wasn't actually even used in the game, but actually in the files of the game. And they, in Australia, because we're a bunch of wowsers, they decided that no, we can't have that. And so basically they're having to change the game throughout the whole world so as not to affect the market in Australia. So they have, the way that they were going to use it, they have morphine used as a medicinal substance within the game, because it's just basically a zombie chasing game. And so they were apparently going to be using cannabis as a medicinal thing. There was no one, I don't know, flaming bongs or lighting up joints or something.
To defeat this next zombie, you have to do a gravity bomb.
That's right. So they were basically, what they're sort of saying is that they're going to use it as a medicine as well. But no, we can't have that. As I said, not even actually in the game, still only in the files. Killing, murdering, chasing people, that's totally fine, even though that's also illegal. It seems that's totally fine in video games, but no, the idea of having medicinal cannabis just even on the file of the game, too far for Australia.
So I was going to ask, what's your highest score on how many zombies have you killed?
Obviously, I am shit at all video games.
We can say shit.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, shit. No one can yell at us.
Exactly. Mario Kart is kind of like my limit, or no.
I was
I'm still playing
games.
FIFA 99.
FIFA 05.
I do have two sons, so I see it all, and I just come in. I'm like, ugh, and I walk
I
out.
wasn't allowed video games growing up, so my whole Mario Kart existence is just going over to friends' houses, and I'm the classic oh, am I that great? Like when you think you're winning, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm top, and I'm still at the start line. Yeah. So let's talk about that, because you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, in the game, like when the game developers of DayZ or DayZ for Pete, when they made it,
Australia, mate.
when they made it, they didn't actually put this in the game. Like, this is fans meddling about with the files and creating like a community mod is just the phrase. And then they get punished for what their fans are doing with the product, which is crazy.
Yeah. As I said, it's crazy. And the fact, I know that, and the fact that it had to change throughout the whole entire world just because of Australia's regulations is ridiculous. But I know that in the game, in Fallout, where they were also using morphine, they just changed the word to MedX or whatever it was. So, and that seemed to be okay with the Wowser board. So maybe they'll just do that, change the word cannabis to something else.
Yeah.
Cannex.
Green medicine.
Medicine. I'm not sure, but maybe that will just appease the board. So as I said, murdering in all sorts of forms, that's totally fine.
Yep.
But the idea of having medicinal cannabis there, too far.
Yep.
Well, that's what I wanted to hit on, because like it's not as bad as murdering people. So why do you think they get so swept up with the
honestly,
thing?
Honestly, I have no idea why there's just one little thing. Whereas I said, you can do almost anything else in most
like
of
you
these
literally,
games.
it's not just zombies that you're killing. It is literally like other survivors that you can choose to be friends with or kill.
Gone deep on this.
Yeah, it's called research.
Research.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, like, the other part of this ban that I love is that, like you said, it was available for 5 years online.
5 years.
For 5 years, Australian gamers have been playing this game, but it's a physical copy that gets banned because the government doesn't know that people buy games online. Is that the idea?
But it's actually going to be affecting the digital sales as well. It's actually going right through and worldwide. So, hopefully it will just be this little name change and then it won't mean too much of a
But I mean in the sense of like for 5 years the government doesn't realise that this game can be bought because they don't walk into JB Hi-Fi and see it. But now that they see it, they go, I need to step in here.
That's bad, very bad, very bad. Yeah, so I think it's just crazy. And once again, just another example of Nanny State ideals just telling us what to do. And now we can't even play the video game. I don't know. It's very bizarre to me.
So we've had a couple of very famous games banned in Australia, Saints Row and the Witcher series.
What are your high scores on those, Pete?
Really good on both of them. Why is it that video games generally are banned in Australia? And why do people zero in on video games as like this evil thing?
It's this whole thing. I mean, even Trump's said it recently as well about the video games. So it's this whole bizarre notion that to me sort of stems back like through the 80s and 90s, that sort of puritanical, and it was just like the ultra religious right, whether it be video games, whether it be like metal music and stuff like that. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, the same kind of thing. And obviously we had, it sort of went on particularly about the music back in those days. But I think there's no studies actually showing any link between increased violence from any sort of video game or any particular music that someone likes. So
this is a YouTube deep dive, but there was like a hearing from when the religious people were starting to say you can't listen to metal music, and I think it was like Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, who led it. But you've got some like death metal acts presenting to the US Congress about why people should listen to their music. And it's always electric.
I remember the Twisted Sister guy.
That's the one. I was trying to think, like, which band was it? It was Twisted Sister.
I was like, I don't know, grade 1 or something, and We're Not Going to Take It song was just like all the rage at our school disco at a Catholic primary school that I was at.
It still goes off.
We're not going to take it. Yeah. And now we're still having to deal with rubbish like this 30, 40 years later. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Did you say that was Al Gore's wife?
Tipper,
yeah.
So they've just been into conspiracy theories for ages.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Yes. Let's move on to the next bit. So this is part of the Nanny State we've been talking about. Do you think Australians deep down like to have the government there protecting them, or are you optimistic and think that actually we'd love to stand on our own 2 feet a bit more? And
I kind of sway. Okay. Sometimes I sort of think, I don't know if it's something about me that I don't like being told what to do, and I think that's why I'm involved with the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah, good start.
I think we're a whole bunch of people that don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, this wasn't filmed, but when we asked Kirsty to take the seat, I just said, would you like that seat? She picked up the chair, threw it across the room.
Yeah, that's the libertarian way.
Yeah.
You can't tell me what to do.
Exactly, it was terrifying.
Exactly. But then I sort of see, like, I'm always amazed by the amount of, particularly through younger people, the amount of people that are wanting more rules and more legislation. The government needs to do something. The government should put extra taxes on sugar and do this and do that. That, when I read those kind of things or I see those kind of things happening on the news or whatever, I'm sort of like, wow, this is weird.
Yeah.
And then, someone will put up a comment like, we're, a penal colony country. We just like our chains. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe we do. I don't know. I find it very bizarre. And there seems to be more and more stats, with the amount of younger people. I hate using the term millennials all the time, but younger people wanting more control by the government over their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, like I've got a few very heavy gamer friends who are just like, it is a bit weird that things like this happen. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, look at yourself. And the other part I want to hit on is you said before how like this used to be the religious right that were getting involved in all these things.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the video games that are getting banned now, it's like, too much violence and too much sex and stuff like that.
Yes.
It's tend to be more of a left-wing thing these days.
Most definitely. It seems to be that's where most of the kind of calls for banning is coming from, is more of a puritanical left now.
Yeah.
It seems to have switched completely, and hence why the whole free speech argument seems to be more of a right-wing conspiracy now. But yeah, it seems to be much more of that sort of left, and that's why so many people find that they are, the old sort of saying, I didn't leave the left left me, because now they're sort of wanting more control and restrictions over movies and art and everything. It's bizarre to me. It's bizarre. I feel, we're supposed to be much more enlightened, I suppose, and there's so many things that change in our community and in our structure that way. But then when those very simple legislations come through, it seems so weird to me.
Yeah.
So video games, weed, what else are the LDP going to be focusing on for the next little bit?
Speaking of weed, sorry, my headphones keep falling off. I'm actually organising an event up in Sydney on the 9th of September. We're doing a Cannabis as Medicine event, and we've got the somewhat controversial Pete Evans speaking. And then we've got Satya Mara from the ATA. So he's going to be talking about more of the economics regarding like the legalisation of cannabis and where that would go that way. And then we've also got a Dr. Sanjay Nijawan from the Cannabis Access Clinics. He is the general director of a whole bunch of cannabis access clinics for medicinal cannabis. Obviously, medicinal cannabis is legal. It's just in very, very low and limited supplies, and it's very difficult for a lot of patients to actually access treatment, and still pretty expensive at the moment, unfortunately. So even in Sydney, there's only about 5 clinics throughout the place that actually can do it. So obviously there's a massive waiting list for people to get in. One of the reasons why I particularly chose that clinic to have someone to represent from is that they also are part of a program called the BOD, which is a trial for ex-defence members to using medicinal cannabis for PTSD, anxiety symptoms. So we've got a charity. This is actually a charity event, and I'm going to spruik this now as well.
Go for it. For people on YouTube who are watching through YouTube, she's got the
Sydney Veterans
paper.
Lodge. So these guys are in Western Sydney, and they're actually a lodge set up by ex-defence members and their supporters, and it's basically a place that's open 24/7 for veterans to just come and hang out. And they're also expanding and doing some more building at the moment as well, and they're looking at having, temporary accommodation. Obviously, I would say almost every week we get more stories about another veteran, and they're generally quite young people that have committed suicide. I find this completely unacceptable. I have a lot of defence friends and family. My own son was also in the Navy, and he was actually the one that put me onto this particular lodge, and they've been really great. So ticket sales for the event is $20. It's all on Eventbrite or on the New South Wales Liberal Democrats Facebook page. Ticket sales go towards the lodge, and then we're also having a raffle and a bit of a pass the hat around as well for these guys. So, yeah.
Cool. What can people Google to find out more?
So, as I said, on Eventbrite, it's called Cannabis as Medicine.
Yep.
So you can either go straight to Eventbrite, or you can go to the New South Wales Liberal Democrats Facebook page, because the event is up there as well.
Cool. I was going to say, in this event, if you do prove that cannabis is good medicine, maybe we can modify DayZ. Maybe we can modify it so that if a character has to take it, another character can appear and say, well, I don't think that's good medicine. They turn around, well, actually, I went to an LDP event back before the zombie apocalypse. So they said it was fine.
Well, this is the crazy thing. Like, as I said, even that game where they're using it, they're going to be using it medicinally, like the morphine, that's legal in Australia. So it's very bizarre, that whole ban. But as I said, I loved Tim's speech about it in Parliament. It was fantastic.
All right, brilliant. Kirsty, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you.